live and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever, Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube, wherever you may be, however you may be watching or listening. Live and in living color, first show of 2023. First things first, Happy New Year. Just 4 days into the new year, and we got no shortage of stuff to talk about. I mean, on the show, as it relates to this, as it relates to like, what a vicious media cycle the last couple of days. Exhausting. I mean, I think a lot of us, particularly sports fans, have been glued to Twitter in one way or another, looking for any and all updates on the Buffalo Bills safety, Damar Hamlin. And man, Dom, I know you're not a big football fan. Joe, I know you. Did you see that?
I know about it.
Did you watch that live?
Yeah, I remember I went downstairs, like, I wasn't really actually watching the game. I went downstairs to just get like a drink or something, and I was like just watching the play, and then I just saw somebody on the field collapse, and I'm like, oh, and then I stuck around, and like, yeah, man, like, next thing you know, the first quarter ended up being the first half of that game.
Man, that was some scary shit. I got home from my girlfriend's a few hours beforehand, and I was like appointment viewing because that was one of the biggest games of the season between two of the best teams in the league. Yeah. And man, nobody's ever seen anything like that before. That is horrifying to say the very least. Yeah, I'm not going to rehash it. This isn't a sports podcast, obviously, but it's just been heavy, I think, on the minds of a lot of people, myself included, and stuff. Yeah. The one thing that I think that is like because I think that this has shown the best of us and the worst of us in a way. I do love, though, I don't know if you guys have seen, he's got Damar Hamlin, the player who is still sedated in the hospital right now. He's got a toy drive for, I believe it's his mother's or his aunt's daycare center, and the goal for the holidays was $2,500. It was at $10,000 at kickoff, just from all the donations that had come in prior. And then by the end of the game, or by the time they called the game, it was like near $1 million. Now it's up to $6 million. And I mean,
at some point, I do wonder, are they going to change what the donation is for? Like, you can't buy $6 million in toys.
No, I know. Well, I mean, at this point now, you're looking at like potential facility upgrades and everything.
Right, exactly.
Like everything's on the table now. Everything's on the table. I mean, you can buy these kids Teslas at this point. But I chipped in. I donated some money. I don't know if I was like a helpless quality or something. I don't know. But like, you know, it just, I'm a big fan of football, and I think a lot of us had to like kind of reckon with our love for the sport over the last couple of days. Scary 48 hours though. But obviously Damar Hamlin has been trending nonstop on Twitter. We have this, Dom would tell you more about this clusterfuck of a House Speaker election that's been going on.
It's entertaining. And by entertaining, I mean nothing is getting done.
It makes me glad whenever I've been seeing it. I couldn't tell you the full extent of it. I know a little bit about Kevin McCarthy, but like every time I see this shit now, or I've seen it popped up, or every time a big political story pops up, I'm just like, thank God I specialize in movies. Something that's actually fun to talk about and is actually like a pretty good state right now, all things considered. But yeah, it's been a vicious news cycle for the last couple of days just to get 2023 off to a roaring start.
We lost a Pope. We lost a Pele. Jeremy Renner almost lost his leg.
Barbara Walters.
It's like shit.
Yeah, that was your trifecta.
Of the newsmakers.
That was your trifecta: Pele, Barbara Walters, and Pope Benedict. And Pope Benedict and Barbara Walters were like within hours of each other. Man, it's just weird. You know, I always say like, not to go long-winded, we'll move into this quickly, but it's funny whenever like somebody comes into the radio station to talk on the air or something, like a business professional, if it's their first time, I try to do a conversation on air. I said it today because I've used this line for years. I always say, I want to have a conversation with you. This doesn't have to be a Barbara Walters interview. And I was like, ooh. I'm like, this doesn't have to be a Leslie Stahl interview. But I'm gonna have to change my verbiage on that. But anyway, we come to you live this evening to give you one of our favorite shows of the year, one of our longest shows of the year, part 1 of 2. We are giving our top 5 favorite films. So that we're talking, I mean, I think maybe we'll have overlap in a few cases, but 15 films Show usually takes about 90 minutes or close to it, so it's a little bit longer of a show. It might need 2 Zoom sponsored intermissions today, and I've already gone a little bit long on the opening. We'll get started here in a moment, but we've each, like we've done now, this is the third year, compiled slideshows that Joe so graciously shows as if he doesn't have enough to do. We've compiled ours into a presentation though, that will be shown across the screen, couple screenshots as well as where you can watch the film as we give just a brief distillation about why said movie belongs on our top 5 list. I've already released my top 10 of the year a little bit earlier than I generally do, just because I had a busy New Year's weekend. So my top 10 favorite and least favorite films are already on my website, stevepulaski.com, but I'm really relishing the opportunity to talk about this. Before we jump in, though, Joe, how are you doing, though? Are you excited for the show? How are you doing?
No, yeah, I'm excited for the show. I mean, kind of going off what you were saying, this has been just a crazy start to the year for me in general, because not only do we have all these celebrity panics with Buffalo Bills players and Marvel actors, like, nearly dying. Yeah, Jeremy Renner. But I like, we had Pele, Barbara Walters. I actually had 2 people in my life pass away. Not like family, but like friends of mine that the first day of the year and the second day of the year, 2 people that were close to me passed. Well, not close, but people I knew. And it's just been kind of weird. I was like, man, it's only been 2 days into 2023. And not only is Hollywood like getting like knocked left and right, but my own life, what the hell is this year going to turn into? So stay tuned for every show here on out.
I don't think either of us knew the extent of that, but I seriously, I'd tell you off air too, my condolences to you, Joe. That's
Thank
tough.
You. Like I said, they're not like super close with me, but like I had to take a few minutes when I heard the news for both of them. I was just like, damn, like, and if any of my friends who know them as well are watching that were closer to them than I was, my condolences to you as well.
Wow.
Makes you vulnerable.
My condolences there. Yeah, it does. Yeah, it shows you this life isn't for long for quite a lot of us in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
My condolences to you, Joe, though.
Thank
no kidding on that.
I'm sorry to start on a grim note, but it was just like this year, like, it's just been a little bit weird of a start.
Dom, how about you? Any better over here for a start of the year?
My wedding is in 3 weeks. That's all I need to say. Let's get to it. Number 5. Who's going first, baby?
Oh, boy. All right, so I guess we'll solidify the order. How about me, Joe, Dom? And then back to me. How does that sound, Joe?
Going to be the finisher? Oh, boy.
Yes. Me, Joe, and then Dom. So we'll start with me. Let me know when you're ready, Joe.
Hold on a minute. Having a problem already with the PowerPoint. Great.
You're gonna be doing a lot of jumping around here. So
all right, we're good.
This is the hardest day of the year for Joe.
Yeah.
The one or two of the hardest days of the year.
Oh man. All right, I'm good to go.
All right. Like I said, let us know if you need us to pause or anything, because I got the show pulled up too, so I can kind of watch. But at any rate, to kick off our top 5 favorite films of 2022, my number 5 favorite film is Top Gun Maverick. My first 4-star, second 4-star movie of the year, technically. And I think, I haven't gone back to fact check this, but I have a good feeling this is the first technical de facto blockbuster that has made my list since Mad Max Fury Road back in 2015. So that says a lot in and of itself. So it tells one thing, I'm pretentious, and number 2, I judge my blockbusters fairly harshly. I've written a lot about this movie, and we did go into it quite a bit on Sleepless. This movie is an astounding achievement, not only in itself, because I think you can perfectly appreciate this movie as a standalone movie, but also given the odds that were stacked against it insofar that so much time has passed. It could have been corny, it could have been fan service, it could have been so many things, but what it is a rousing great time at the movies. Like one of the first big screen spectacles we've gotten in this however you define post-pandemic world. This Top Gun Maverick was absolutely it. And I think not to go long, the core of this movie, besides its sexy 6K visuals, besides its great soundtrack, and just the premise alone and the objective at hand. Once the objective is introduced and the mission is revealed, the lean forward aspect, what rests Tom Cruise makes this movie. That's what rests on this movie's success is Tom Cruise's earnestness. He has gone on to be Maverick. He ages in reverse. His thirst for thrills is unquenchable, and he's 59 going on 60, and he still has this boyish energy level. You can tell the Maverick character means a lot to him. He's kind of gone on to live a Maverick lifestyle in a figurative and in a fictional sense of the word, and it's just a rousing, extremely well-made blockbuster. Big credit. I don't feel like he's getting enough credit, but a big credit goes to Joseph Kosinski as well, who did Only the Brave. He outdid himself here, blew away my expectations, and I think of my top 5 movies, Top Gun Maverick stands out because I was not extremely excited to see this. I wasn't pessimistic about seeing it, but I was kind of like gritted teeth going into it. And it blew my expectations away. Good enough to make my number 5 on the list. Top Gun Maverick from me.
Awesome.
Thomas Cruise Mapother the Fourth. Congrats to you. You did it.
Against all odds, against insurmountable odds, he did it. But yeah, my number 5, though, Top Gun Maverick.
Okay. I'm going next, you said, right?
Yes, indeed.
All right. Well, for me, at number 5 is also Top Gun Maverick. Okay. I wasn't here to review this with you guys. I think there's another film on here that I wasn't here to review with you guys that will pop up on my list. Oh wait, yes it will, but not as a top 5. It's an honorable mention. But yeah, no, this to me, again, I don't even think the first Top Gun is all that good of a movie. I remember watching it, kind of just thinking like, all right, it's like your typical 80s action film. The whole mission at the end just kind of comes out of nowhere after they've just been like messing around throughout that whole movie, and then they're like, oh wait, we actually have to do something like legit and serious and dramatic. This movie, I mean, from the get-go, they introduce a literal suicide mission. And like, they set the dangers, they like, put you in the seat of being a pilot for this mission, which I think was probably the best thing about it. As Steve said, this is like, technically a technical masterpiece, and everything about this movie that he said when it came to that, like, yeah, I completely agree. The scenes where you are in the cockpit with all the characters as they fly around, and like, some of them are literally passing out and everything, even though they're just training sequences of like the young pilots learning how to do this like quick trench run, they're still intense as hell. And like, I'm literally like, like on the edge of my seat wondering how they filmed this, how like, Tom Cruise is still not dead to this day from doing all of his own stunts and flying helicopters, flying planes, doing literally everything himself. He literally does make the movie. There's no doubt about it. This is his like, this was literally his big project, I think. I think this is like, he had so much more passion for this than he does with the Mission Impossible films, and like those movies I think he loves to death as well, but like to him I think this one meant a lot because he argued for the longest time against the studio as well as the director here not to release this on Paramount Plus throughout 2021, and they wanted to keep their theater release date. And once you see it in theaters, you see why you needed to see this on the big screen. You see why you needed to see it with an audience. And talk about a weekend for it to release on Memorial Day weekend as well. I mean, this movie made hell of a lot of money. Came out on the perfect weekend for it. And it's just a crowd-pleasing movie. It's streaming on Paramount Plus right now. If you still have not seen it, where the hell have you been? And if I were you, definitely check it out.
Simple as that. We already started with a consensus.
It follows the heist template so damn well.
It does, yeah.
Which is, they establish early on, here's the big thing that you have to do. It's impossible. And then they make it possible by the end. And then it's just executed. By the time you get to the heist itself, the big mission, it's a damn good time. And you're just completely enveloped.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah. Really, really good synopsis on that. Yeah. And the stunt work, I didn't mention it, but the stunt work's phenomenal too.
Yeah. Tom Cruise wanted to fly a jet so bad, be the actual pilot of the thing as opposed to riding in the back, but they would not let him. And it's like, good idea. But also, how awesome would it have been if Scientology man got to actually fly a $1 billion jet? I don't know.
But they used real planes, and like for a movie like that, it doesn't feel like they were like. And that's what struck me about seeing it on the big screen. I don't know. I can't say if it plays as well on the smaller screen, but like I remember even sitting in the theater thinking, this doesn't feel like it was made in a green screen garage. Like this,
Right.
it sounds, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It hits different when it's real planes and real artillery.
The opening sequence with the big ass like Raven Bird plane, whatever the hell it's called, the code name for it, that just takes off and literally goes almost to space. Like the minute that thing took off, and I saw this in Dolby, I mean, like the whole theater was just shaking. I said, "Oh hell yeah, this movie's gonna rock."
Jealous of your Dolby experience. At any rate, what you got for us, D?
All right, here is my very controversial. This is going to be probably the most controversial one on the list. My number 5 is none other than Elvis by director Baz Luhrmann. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? Okay. I will actually have to defend this one. The rest, not as nearly as much, but I actually will have to defend this one. I understand if it makes no one else's list. I understand if it makes other people's worst lists. I'm not going to argue that. I'm probably for it. But out of all the movies here, none of them made me feel the way that Elvis by Baz Luhrmann got me to feel. Unironically, Baz Luhrmann makes, without hesitation in my mind, some of the best montages in cinema, period. Like, dude, every time I look at it, every time I get to that opening scene where they're doing Battle Hymn of the Republic, right? And it's Elvis going glory, glory, hallelujah. And it's just, it goes from Zapsura, the Space Odyssey 2001 song, to glory, glory, hallelujah. I almost cry. Like, bruh, this is probably how it felt to be an Elvis fan when he was alive, watching him live. It was like it's like a 30-second mini concert, and you just get the highs on it. And like, this movie is so freaking, it really is the Fast and Furious of biopics. I mean that sincerely. And no other movie this year, in the last few years, have made me feel this way. Not even other Baz Luhrmann films, like I don't even know, but like yeah, sure, Moulin Rouge, The Great Gatsby. Obviously, the through lines are obviously there, but like they don't even make me feel the way it's do. This movie is quintessentially American, not just in its subject matter, not just in its story template, but in how gaudy and messy it is at times. And in that sense, that's why it is my number 5. And I cannot consciously pull this up any higher because of the big man himself, not Tom Cruise, but rather Tom Hanks, just completely decimates this movie. Like literally the definition of decimates, which is to take by a factor of 10 and just break it down. It's like, shit, if it wasn't for him, this would have done so much better just in general. But dude, Aston Butler is going all out. Like he never becomes Elvis truly. He can't escape into it like Lincoln did by Daniel Day-Lewis. But there's just something about him that he captures that essence that it could have easily been a parody, but it's not. So, gentlemen, you can disagree with me, and I will probably accept your critiques. But for me, this has to be on my list. I debated it strongly internally. This has to be on my list, and it is number 5. Some of the best montages I have ever seen. I love them so.
I put up a poll. I didn't know you could do this on YouTube chats. We probably won't get any votes, but I put up a poll on the YouTube chat, and the poll question right now, if you want to reply to it, the question is Dom out of pocket for putting Elvis in his top 5? That is the poll question right now.
Okay, okay. Before you vote on that poll, watch the first minute on HBO Max. Well, just watch the first.
If you go
like
on,
30
there's
minutes.
152 more minutes to go after that.
Yeah.
If you
What, those
go on
first
the
3
YouTube
minutes?
channel, the first 10 minutes of that movie's on there, so it's just like that'll give you a good sense.
Hell yeah, brother.
I didn't hate it. It's not on my worst list. I didn't hate it. But it's
You
not
should.
touching it's not touching my best list. You would love my one friend in Tucson who loves movies as much as me. He put that, I believe, as his number 1 or 2 favorite film of the year, Elvis.
Okay.
And I will say I love the adjective he used to describe that. He used the word rapturous.
That is pretty good.
And then I'm like, that is an elite adjective. Like, I can't disagree. Yeah, he fought me. We fought on that one for a little bit.
If this is the definitive Elvis movie, I am more than okay with that. Because it is a cinematic journey. It is an experience, bro. It is something else.
Dom, I'm not even gonna disagree with you with your pick, honestly, because there are moments of this movie I felt like, damn, this is like one of the best things I've seen all year. And then there's moments I sit there and go, oh man, this is one of the slowest things I've seen all year.
Tom Hanks just starts talking.
Like,
and immediately.
It is such
there are 4-star moments in it. There are absolutely 4-star moments.
And it's not just that there's one. There's like 7 for me personally. There's like 7 4-star moments here. And also about 37 1-star moments, and it is incredible. How did this movie get made? By not like from the beginning, just how did it come together in this way? I don't know. It's an anomaly.
You know what it is? It's just the best, most Baz Luhrmann thing he's ever done, man.
The most Baz Luhrmann thing is like a movie.
Like Baz Luhrmann. You know how I always say, like, it feels like Baz Luhrmann is on cocaine.
Peak.
Like, this is the cocaine he does, and it's just like you have trips with him. You're either on this high octane energy or you're just like wigging out and you don't know what's going on.
For sure. Now, and they always prompt all his movies, and I'm divided on a handful, Elvis included. They always prompt interesting discussions. What I will say, though, is he did come out a couple of months ago and say that he wants to take the footage they shot and edit it into like a full-length Elvis concert with Austin Butler playing Elvis.
I would watch
Hell
that.
yes.
I would watch that.
Hell yes.
I can't deny that. Dude, because they said that they shot him performing like some concert that Elvis did.
If they did
and they re-recorded. And they re-recorded every song and every performance.
Oh, that's badass.
And he wants to edit it together for a full-length and I would watch that. I would absolutely first day watch that.
Dude, bring that to Vegas. I'd go there and watch it.
Because you know what it would be? It would be like an hour and a half or 2 hours of the best part of Elvis, which is 100%. Austin Butler. Yeah. Which is Austin Butler. You know?
Tom Hanks like creeping in the background.
One of my top 10 favorite line deliveries all year. It has everything to do with us. One of my favorite line deliveries all year. All right,
it's so stupid.
We're getting started over here. All right, now this is going to be a fun one with my number 4. I always love and I hate when I recommend a movie and I highly praise a movie that you can't watch yet or you can't find yet.
Steve got his card ready.
Here we go. My number 4 favorite film of the year is Punch 9 for Harold Washington. Second documentary on my top 10 overall. Punch 9 for Harold Washington. If you don't know who Harold Washington is, Harold Washington was the first black mayor of the city of Chicago. And this was in 1983. And I've known about Harold Washington for years. I've known about him. He's got a park named after him. He has a cultural center. He has a library. He has a community college in Chicago. And growing up in the Chicagoland area, just outside of city limits, you know, he was one of the politicians back in the day that we actually kind of liked. He was that actually had close to, at least even more so in retrospect, unanimous approval. Yeah, and he's a fascinating figure in itself, and I'm so glad this documentary was made. Directed by Chicago native Joe Winston, too. The movie talks about Harold Washington's rise in the political landscape in the mid '50s and the mid '70s, too. This was a city that was dominated, controlled, strong-armed, really, by Mayor Richard J. Daley, the Elder Daley. Who was a big proponent of the segregated city of Chicago. And then here comes, after a couple mayors like Blandick and Jane Byrne, here comes Harold Washington, this black populist figure. And he's fascinating. And without going into too much detail, because that's what I feel like I hate with reviewing documentaries, I feel like I'm just regurgitating the story.
Right.
The fascinating angle of this documentary that I did not know as a part of history was that when Harold Washington eventually won the Democratic nomination, this was astonishing, okay? As we all know well, and I'm sure most of the country knows, Chicago is and almost always will be a Democratic city. No competition. Bruce Rauner as governor was a rarity, especially mayorally speaking. Chicago will always be a Democratic city. Except when the first black guy got the nomination for Democratic mayor. Now, Dom's laughing because Dom probably knows this story inside and out. I did not know this part of it. That when Washington finally got to be the Democratic candidate for the mayoral election that year, the Republican candidate, Bernie Epton, won the Republican nomination with 11,000 votes. But he became even more attractive to the Democratic machine, who mostly endorsed him. And then you had a flock of he became the apple of white supremacist eyes and those who just couldn't stomach the thought of a black man being the face of Chicago politics. Bernie Epton.
Chicago.
There were TV ads back in the day. I don't know if you know this part. There were TV ads back in the day. The slogan was, "Vote Epton for mayor before it's too late." That was the dog whistle slogan back in the day. And fucking Epton almost won. He almost won.
It was close.
621,000 votes, record shattering for a Republican in Chicago. Washington won with 666,000. At any rate, though, to wrap this up, Punchline for Harold Washington. It's an outstanding documentary. It's rich with Chicago history. It goes into the council wars, the squabbles amongst the aldermen who wanted to stonewall and block every piece of legislation Washington wanted to get done, and then unfortunately his untimely death. Lori Lightfoot's in it, Barack Obama's in it, Rahm Emanuel's in it. There's a ton of Chicago faces. This is a hugely Chicago picture, and it's a damn great documentary. It had a limited run in theaters over Washington's birthday, or over Washington's, I believe, his death around Thanksgiving. It had a limited run in theaters. VOD release is pending for this year. Absolutely make a note of it. I'm keeping tabs on it because I kind of want to review it on the show. Punch 9 for Harold Washington, my number 4 favorite film of the year. Joe, we could probably squeeze in yours before the intermission. What were you going to say, Dom?
Just that it's crazy. If I had seen it at all, I haven't seen it yet, it probably would have made my list, probably high on this list if it wasn't for the fact that it's not available anywhere to watch too much. But yeah, dude, that was a crazy time in Chicago politics as always, but that is definitive. And I watched because I'm a freaking weirdo, and I watched the primary debate between him, Byrne, and the son of Daley. The three of them going at it on stage in the Hilton, and the crowd there was wild. They probably was showing clips of this. It was just people shouting, "We want Harold." We just the moderator trying to get a word in. The three of them just going at it, and it's people it's crazy. Politics is crazy now, but it goes just as hard back then as well, all throughout American history. But yeah, dude.
There you go. There you go. Dom's sweating. We still got time before the Zoom sponsored intermission. Joe, I would love to hear your number 4 on the list.
You're good, Dom.
You're fine.
4,
yeah.
I'll be real quick too, so maybe we can squeeze in Dom's possibly. I don't know. My number 4 is Glass Onion: A Knives Out Mystery. I was contemplating putting this on my list because this is literally the last thing I watched last year on Christmas Day. And then literally, 5-6 days later, the year ended. So I was like, crap, do I actually put this on my list? So I went back and I watched it again, and I was like, I just find this to be so damn stupid, which is why it works so damn good. If you don't know, this movie is like, there's a reason why those tweets are coming out of like Rian Johnson and Daniel Craig both saying, yeah, we could probably do the Muppets as a murder mystery with the Knives Out characters, because while this movie like is trying to like, has its serious moments, has its dramatic moments, this is a flat out mystery comedy with just characters who play very extreme versions of people that we see in society today, from billionaires to politicians to Twitch, what's the best word I could think of here? And just like, yeah, a Twitch male rights activist. There we go. It just captures all that in a movie that is just so bonkers and crazy, and I had so much fun watching it. The fact that Rian Johnson not only did it once again with the whodunit formula, where he takes it and it's just like, hey, I'm going to do a different spin on it entirely. Instead of trying to figure out, like, who killed who, there's a lot more twists and turns here than just that. Which I think is why I like this a little bit more than the first one. Because I went to the first one knowing, like, just from the first, like, 20 minutes, like, okay, they did it. And I was just like, okay, but, like, I'm still interested in how this is going to play out. Not only here was there just the whole mystery of, okay, who did it, but there's a lot more of, why is Daniel Craig's character, Benoit Blanc, why is he invited to this island with a bunch of other billionaire played by Edward Norton and his like best friends? Why is he invited to this island? Why did one of their old best friends show up on this island and is like being very cold-shouldered to everybody? There's so much more mystery going on here. And I also think that this movie having a smaller cast compared to Knives Out allowed for people to actually stand out and for characters to actually stick out, other than Leslie Odom Jr., who I felt was really wasted here. Everybody else here I think does such a great job. Kate Hudson has like some of my favorite moments where she's like on the verge of getting herself canceled on social media every minute, but her like little secretary is always bailing her out. Edward Norton literally being Elon Musk is probably like a lot of fun. It's more fun than it should be. There's a great whole dialogue sequence involving the Mona Lisa painting when it comes to billionaires, and I think it's probably the wittiest and smartest thing this movie does, because other than that, there's a lot of like dumb moments in this movie, but because of just how cartoonishly like fun it is and how just the frantic energy I think Rian Johnson brings here, you're just rolling with it and just having a blast with this entire cast. Yeah, I mean, that is my number 4 pick, Glass Onion and Knives Out Mystery.
Can't argue with any of it. Was really dazzled by that movie itself. It did make my top 10 list, not my top 5, but it did make my top 10 list. Really glad I waited to watch it before I did make my list. I also just really love the visuals of that movie. It is so sleek. The glass onion itself is gorgeous.
I forgot to mention that in my little thing, is that I think the location here is way more interesting than the first Knives Out. I think that whole island is such a great setting for a murder mystery.
Yeah, and there's not many mysteries that could take an hour and 10 minutes to reveal, to talk through the reveal and still be interesting.
Yeah.
I really hope that people have been tossing a lot of ideas out for the next Knives Out movie, and I kind of hope, I think Rian Johnson said there is a logistical problem with it. I would love for it to be Benoit Blanc meets the Muppets.
Yeah, why not? Like, after this last
movie, I would love that.
Especially how much this one jumps the shark at the end. I'm just like, you know what? You might as well.
Yeah, I would love that. I still like the line, disruption. He's great. Daniel Craig's phenomenal in that film, though. No argument there. I don't want to shortchange Dom, but we will take our Zoom sponsored intermission break.
I didn't watch it.
No, I don't want to shortchange you. I didn't want to shortchange you with the giving away your 4th pick.
Got it. No problem.
Time. So we will take a quick Zoom sponsored intermission, be back in about 60 to 90 seconds, continue what is going to be one of our longest shows, as it normally is. Our top 5 favorite films of 2022. Don't go anywhere. Dom's got his number 4 pick coming up next. Back and better than ever, Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube. We are counting down our top 5 favorite films of 2022. Just left off with Joe's pick. Number 4 for him was Glass Onion, A Knives Out Mystery. Number 4 for me was the documentary Punch 9 for Harold Washington. Dominic, what is your number 4 pick?
My number 4 is significantly less controversial, The Batman by Matt Reeves, director Matt Reeves. Yeah, dude, this ticked everything off for me pretty much perfectly. We got to see once again a dark Gotham, a gothic Gotham, one that really captures the essence of being a seedy hellhole. And we were just joking about Chicago politics on that Harold Washington documentary. This is the extreme of that, in the sense of just how freaking ridiculous this city is, and the fact that we got Edward from Twilight, the redemption arc of this man, of this actor, it has been so great to watch. Not that he needed redemption, I'm joking, of course, but like, yeah, dude, everyone here is doing so damn well. The mystery is there, and the great Paul Dano, just the perfect casting for this Riddler character. I'm so glad he was Riddler and not Joker, and he got to just play some weird ass serial killer shit, and that he no longer has to play, hopefully, an actual serial killer in some and yet another Dahmer movie. I'm so tired of those. Just tired of giving that guy that actual serial killer some fame. But yeah, dude, this was such a. I was just rooting for something from DC that wasn't that doing something with their Batman property or their DC universe that wasn't so difficult to watch. Obviously, Joker had come out before this, but which I do enjoy very much. But it's even in that same vein, and I'm glad that we get to have this. I hope this becomes the standard and the de facto in how we approach Batman, which is the pictures that Joe's flashing on the screen, that just captures it perfecally for me.
Yes,
so
number
4.
The one of
I'm not looking, so is it number? Yeah, there you go. Hey, that works. Yeah, dude, this is easily my number 4 of the list. The only thing that's holding it back even more is probably the other movies, but more so the fact that at the end, my one critique was that it did turn a little ridiculous at the end. I was like, oh, okay, we got bombs going off, and now this turns into like classic doomsday shit. But it wasn't a too big of a gripe. And it did everything else great for me.
I don't mean to spoil the rest of my list, but no comic book movie is actually not only they're not in my top 5, they're not in my top 10. They did make it my honorable mentions. But the Batman is definitely one that, like, if anybody were to tell me that or Wakanda Forever was in their top 5 or top 10, it's like, yeah, I completely understand. Both those movies rocked. This to me, I kind of like, the reason why I just didn't make it that far for me was the last hour to me. It's like that first 2 hours, I was like, this is the best Batman thing ever. And then like they like kind of solved the case of the movie, and you're like, what's gonna happen next? And we just get an hour of them.
They try to escalate.
Yeah.
But it just hits the roof that was already there.
Yeah. But other than that, I mean, it is a beautiful ass nightmare of a movie. Like, go into Gotham and it is dark, gritty, and it's everything I've always wanted to see with a Batman film. Minus the mystical elements or the fantastical elements, which I'm still hoping to this day we get.
Black Panther is not on my list. Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever, because this is my one superhero movie, I think. And it's because this is the best.
Where it's like, I feel like they get enough recognition that I only want to put one.
I mean, it depends if they're really good, but honestly, this one is the most put together out of all of them this past year. Delivering on theme, but also just a well put together script, and it paced itself the best out of all of them.
I completely agree. No superhero movie made my top 10 this year, but if one did, it would have been the Batman. It would have been Batman might have made it my top 20 for me. Might have been a lower entry, but it might have been. I thoroughly enjoyed that movie for a lot of reasons you guys listed too. And I thought Paul Dano was the first legitimately terrifying villain in a long, long time.
Yeah.
Like legitimately unhinged, terrifying. Really good year for Paul Dano too. He was really good in that, and he was really good in The Fabelmans too, which I did finally see. He's very good. He's very good in The Fabelmans as well. Totally different role, but very good no less. Moving forward, my number 3 favorite film of 2022 is Ninja Thyberg's Pleasure. Now, I had to really be careful which kind of images I used for this
Dude,
thing.
I was about to shut down the stream. I thought I revealed something on screen. I was like, Steve!
I had to be very careful with the images I used for this movie. And again, just like I'm going to tell you guys when we review, if we do wind up reviewing Megan, hey, boys, eyes up here, or all you going to horny jail. Anyway, Pleasure, though. I've been looking forward to this movie for almost a full year when I finally did see it several months ago. It was a Sundance movie. I didn't see it at Sundance 2 years ago. It took an abnormally long time to finally come out. What happened was A24 bought the rights to it, but they wanted to make an R-rated cut of it and an NC-17 cut of it, and Ninja Thyberg did not want to do that. So they dropped the A24 distribution and took it to Neon, and Neon agreed to not edit the movie. I don't think the movie's NC-17. I think it's not rated. I just think it's not rated because it was going to get an NC-17, and Thyberg refused to cut it. It's based off her 2013 short film. There aren't many movies about the porn industry, and there are far too few great movies about the porn industry. This is one of them. And this is really a revelation in some ways for the genre, I think. Number one, there's a lot of actual porn stars in this movie. Evelyn Clare is in it. Dana DeArmond's in it. Kendra Spade's in it. Axel Braun, Chris Cock. There's a lot of actual, like, legitimate porn actors in this movie, number one. Even Sophia Kappel, who's the lead role, was a porn actress, albeit very briefly. But the other thing that this is a revelation for is that this movie doesn't dial up the victim narrative, and it's not trying to be exploitative in any way. This is a movie that strips the porn industry from its eroticism and looks at the mundane business side of things. The STD tests, the pep talks, the safe words, the video recordings of IDs, the video recordings of consent, all that stuff, the douching, all the stuff that goes in on a porn set, all the unsexy elements that go into commercializing sex. And it's more, what's really fascinating, what I really got into this movie is that it's really more about the construction of arousal than the arousal itself. I don't think a lot of people would know, especially given the images that Joe probably flashed through very quickly to make sure we stay on stream. There is vastly more male nudity in this movie than female nudity.
Hell yes.
There's vastly more male nudity in this movie than there is female nudity. Evelyn Clare, too, is phenomenal. Sophia Kappel is really good. The Oscars are cowards. They will not nominate her for Best Actress. But Evelyn Clare, who's a popular porn star, I wouldn't know that. I just read that in People. But Evelyn Clare is extremely good in this movie and
clip that
and very terse and just a presence in herself. She's been promoting the hell out of this movie, defending a lot of it from its negative criticisms and such. And then I'll end with this by saying that when I missed Pleasure at Sundance in 2021, I kept a Post-it note on my very crowded desk over here, my wall of Post-it notes that said Pleasure, Ninja Thyberg, VOD ? And I kept it on my wall over here for almost, I want to say 11 months. And that was a good move. This movie obviously didn't disappoint in the slightest. It's number 3 on my list. And I've actually recommended it to 2 friends who also really enjoyed it as well. I don't know if enjoy is the right word, but really liked it too. So 3.5, or I'm not rating it, but 3.5 stars for Pleasure and number 3 on my list for favorite films of 2022. It's available to rent on video on demand.
Ninja Thyberg sounds like an actor's name. Just gonna say that.
I can't confirm if that's her.
Thyberg. I was like, that's a cool name. What does that mean?
I can't confirm if that's her government name or not. I don't think it is.
Sure.
But it's an awesome name, and Ninja Thyberg's very cool too. This is also I believe too. This is also a French production too, for what that's worth.
Okay. all jokes aside, I would actually be very interested in seeing this just because I remember seeing Hot Girls Wanted, which was I think directed and produced by I forget her name, but she it was a pretty decent documentary. There was some weird stuff in it, but not even weird, but just like it just kind of left some questions unanswered and not as satisfying. But honestly, like the porn industry is one of the most consumed industries in this day and age, and like you don't think about it, but everyone watches it, and like
And nobody wants to talk
no
about
one
it.
wants
It
to
bugs
yeah,
the
exactly
shit out of me.
100%. And it's like, look, I'm not saying we need to bring it up all the time, but like there is that taboo. And like, yeah, you have to realize what's going on. Otherwise the shadier shit is going to keep on happening. So, am I necessarily saying we should legalize and, re-examine how we approach sex work? Yes, that is actually what I'm saying. But I haven't seen this, so I don't know if this is the movie to really champion that. But it is incredible when you think about how deep, how little we talk about it, and how widely mass consumed it is by everyone. And I'll just leave that there.
Yeah, highly recommend it. Wish it was available on like Hulu or something. But you do have to rent it, but it's absolutely worth the $3.99 or whatever it costs. So Pleasure's number 3 for me. Joe, what's your number 3?
My number 3. I'm glad to hear you recommended your number 3 and people actually came back to you and said, I actually enjoyed that movie. Because unfortunately with my number 3, I had quite the opposite, and people told me they hated this movie. And I'm like, I guess I'm in the minority, question mark. But my number 3 is The Menu, which I know, Steve, you enjoyed this, but I have talked to 3 people that I recommend this movie to. They told me this is one of the worst movies they've seen this year.
Stop the cap! Stop the cap!
What?
Stop the cap!
Yeah, The Menu to me, as you can tell, if you're looking on the screen right now, you'll guys see if you're watching the stream. It'll pop up in a few seconds once the delay catches up. But I have the template from the Suicide Squad where it's Idris Elba saying he's Glass Onion, saying he does exactly what I do, and then John Cena's The Menu, but better. Because to me, that's what this movie was. It did everything. Not that I'm trying to like really compete with these two, but everything that Glass Onion did, I think The Menu just did better. I thought that the cast was utilized better here. Not that it wasn't in Glass Onion. I thought the mystery and the thrills in The Menu were done better. Not that it wasn't done bad in Glass Onion. I think it just came down to, I just love how sinister this movie was, and how much of how tense it was. How much I was like, oh my god, is everybody going to make it off this island with this like rampaging chef who is just done with the world and wants to kill the people he finds the most disgusting in the world. It's absolutely amazing. Again, a stellar cast of characters played by great people. John Leguizamo, I thought was amazing in this movie. It was great to see him be do a dramatic role like this, a comedic dramatic role. Nicholas Holt's in this, and he plays one of the worst dudes I've ever seen in a movie. Honestly, the term "men ain't shit." That's what this character is and was throughout the whole movie. But all things aside from all of them, I think her name is Hong Chow, right?
Yes.
She killed it in this movie as the hostess. Every time she's on screen, I am just like, okay, she is about as psycho as, of course, the antagonist of the movie, played by Ralph Fiennes, who is a chef that owns this private island that he culinary trains all these chefs day in, day out, from morning till night, 7 days a week, no break. He is literally like Gordon Ramsay, but on steroids, man. He is he is insane. And this is probably my favorite performance I've seen him do in such a long time. And the man has so many great performances, from Grand Budapest Hotel to stuff as I just recently watched this sci-fi cyberpunk movie with him, directed by Catherine Bigelow, Strange Days, where he plays a sleazeball, if you're familiar with dream dancing in cyberpunk terms. he's a dream dancing dealer where he sells people's memories that they can watch in order to like get like a turn on either through sex or everything. Like the guy is filled with great performances, and I think this is one of his best. Is he gonna get nominated for anything at the Golden Globes or Oscars? Probably not, because this movie unfortunately didn't do well at the box office. And as of now, 3 people that I've told to recommend it to told me this movie is the absolute worst thing they've seen all year. So I don't know. For me, it's my number 3. Go figure it out for yourself. You might just come back into the chat later and say, Joe, your opinion sucks and you have terrible taste in movies. And I'll just say, okay.
For the record, the movie did make $73 million against a $30 million budget. It was actually kind of a sleeper hit because there was nothing out. There was nothing, not a lot out after Black Panther and between Avatar, so it did linger quite a bit. I was happy to see that. It looked like it was going to be rough the first week or two, but it wound up legging it.
I saw the first week, I was like, okay, this thing ain't making money.
No, and who could blame you? The other thing that's really sneaky interesting about this movie, too, is that this is a Gary Sanchez production. Adam McKay and Will Ferrell are producers on this thing. Yeah, and I found that fascinating. No, I loved it, and it's so funny that like some of your friends didn't like this movie because I just watched Triangle of Sadness, the movie that won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival. Mm-hmm. The thing that I find funny about that movie, about Triangle of Sadness, and it's not perfect, but it won the top prize, so it's one of the most talked about movies. But it's very divisive, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, it's the same thing with The Menu. We can't appreciate like these uppity rich bastards getting their comeuppance. I thought we could rally around something as this country. We can't even rally around this. I do think The Menu is an ultimately better and more fascinating movie. But no, that almost made my top. It almost did make my top 10 to represent the horror genre this year.
That's another thing too. It is more of a thriller than horror film, but there are some moments, man. It is just like absolutely like just horrific what is happening to these people on this island. The last thing I wanted to say is the best thing about this movie is the culinary dishes and the stories behind them and why they're presented in the way they are. Which is one of the images I have on screen right now, which is a pair of scissors stabbed into a chicken thigh on top of a telephone cord. And I will not go into why that is presented that way. You will just have to go on HBO Max and find it yourself and then tell me I suck.
What a memorable Taco Tuesday it was. Great film, though. Hats off to you putting it on your top 10, though. And like I said, narrowly missed mine. Anya Taylor-Joy, fantastic in that as well. Yeah. Dom, what is your third?
My number 3 is Jackass Forever. This is comfort food, man. This made me feel great. It was like stepping into a portal back to 2003. Life was simple. I had my video games. I was going to grade school. There was that war in Iraq, but it was a good time other than that. And yeah, dude, the fact that they got the gang back together again and that there is, relatively speaking, that there is not as much drama as there could have been. Like, it's basically just Bam that they were having trouble with, who apparently is getting better these days. I don't know. They'll figure it out when they figure it out. But yeah, dude. And what really propelled us over the top, because I could have been cool with like 90 minutes of just doing like half of the same gags, but they're older, and then a couple of new ones. But they brought in new blood, and which is very risky, because if you can't get that same kind of like spark, get that same kind of personality, and you kind of force, trying to force it in, then that just sours the whole experience. But no, dude, the fact that one of those dudes, Poopsie, was he there the whole time? Like, he felt like he could have been there the whole time to me. Also because he was older. But everyone here hits it out of the park. One of the new person's dads turns out to be like a major hit for me during that tarantula sequence. So goddamn good. And it is just classic. They got the gang back together. It's honestly like seeing the other Spider-Man in No Way Home. It's like, yeah, dude, it's like just like old times. And I do often deride treading old ground. Doing the same shit over and over again, trying to capture the magic. But the only reason why I do that is because a lot of people try it and they fail spectacularly, and it just becomes a really embarrassing like section of the Wikipedia where it's like, you tried to revive this for a season and then it didn't work, and it's just a little whatever. Not that it ruins the earlier stuff, but come on. Here, this not only is not only a not embarrassing new venture into the saga that is Jackass, but it is now something that can be celebrated and is awesome. And actually, like the fact that I walked out of this thinking like, shit, I could go for a Jackass Part 5. And I know they're doing the 4.5 or whatever, which is they've become a tradition now, where it's like they release the behind the scenes of the movie that becomes almost as good as the movie itself. But it's like, dude, they could even go forward with this, with like the old gang slowly becoming the peanut gallery, and then they just physically abuse all these new people in hilarious ways. But yeah, dude, this is awesome. The fact that Jeff Tremaine is still doing it after all these years, and I don't think he's gotten into any kind of trouble. You look at Jeff Tremaine, it's like, you've got to have gotten in trouble by now with something. No? Okay, I guess not. And it's like everyone's cool here. And it's a damn good time. Steve-O's looking great, doing great. Wee Man's doing great. It's just good to see. I hope 5 or 6. What would bring this whole saga into the stratosphere and into the legends of yore is just if Bam can get his shit together and they can have a happy ending in 5 or 6 or whatever, or even just behind the scenes. Don't even make a new movie. But Jackass Forever is a 5 ever good time.
I will say briefly, I've seen Jackass Forever twice now. Once in theaters, once on Paramount when it came out shortly after. Liked it a lot. 4.5 is even better. 4.5 is even better. It's even better, and it feels like, because some people said that the stunts maybe, like, I guess, all relative, but didn't seem as grand as in past Jackass movies. Let me tell you, there are at least 3 or 4 that come to mind in 4.5 that I think should have made Forever, but I think they consciously put them in 4.5 knowing it was going to be the last hurrah. 4.5 is probably the only 0.5 movie of all the Jackasses, and I've seen all of them, is probably the only 0.5 I feel like they could have called this Jackass 5 and put it in theaters.
Shit.
It's that good.
I actually haven't seen
it. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it yet, no, but I felt the same way about some of the stunts. I love Jackass Forever too, by the way. Probably my favorite experience I had with my 3 buddies in the theater. But I felt the last thing they do in that movie, the last big stunt, I was like, that's it? Like, I was just like, what the hell? But
it's funny, the Vomitron, but it is underwhelming, and because I rewatched all 3 before seeing Jackass 4, and I rewatched all 3, and I was like, it just didn't hit as hard enough. Jackass 4.5 though is so good. There's also more with Rachel Wolfson, and there's more with Zach Holmes, Zach-ass, who's funnier than shit. Who's funnier than shit, and I know he's just like, as Mancow Muller used to say, his joke is fatty fall down and go boom. But man, he's funny as hell. The human sledding and stuff. There's some good bits of him in 4.5 that I think should have made the cut. But at any rate, moving forward, this is my number 2 film. But honestly, you guys probably won't believe this. There were some days I woke up thinking this was going to be my number 1 movie, and it wrestled in my mind. It wrestled in my mind for weeks. I kind of think of it as 1B. My number 2/1B favorite film of 2022 is Bones and All. Bones and All is an enigmatic movie. I'll piggyback off of what Joe said, because my very best friend, when I came out of the theater, I text him first, and I text him and I text my girlfriend. I text him, I said, Bones and All is out fucking standing. Make time for it ASAP. And he told me, he said, when he finally saw it, one of the worst films he's seen all year. One of the worst films he's seen all year. I
actually saw this on a worst of list too from a critic, and I was like,
I did too on Variety.
Yeah, right.
On Variety. Yes. 4-star movie to its very core, this movie. This is the kind of film that, number 1, stays with you long after the credits roll. And number 2, and this is a lofty take right here, but I stand by it. In terms of how it fuses genres together and refuses to be neatly classifiable, and is also enigmatic narratively enough where it's hard when somebody asks you what it's about, you kind of have to pause and you're like, is there any way to directly distill this movie down to its bare basics? It's probably the best movie to do that since Parasite. In all those facets. This is an extravagantly beautiful, disturbing, and at times unbearably tragic movie that is about two young cannibals in Taylor Russell and Timothy Chalamet. It's a road movie. It's set throughout most of the Midwest. Fun fact, there's a great stretch in Iowa. There's a really good stretch in Iowa. But this movie really grabs you by the throat and takes you along for the ride, but it does so in such an unexpectedly beatific and tragic way. And even when it comes down to the acts of cannibalism, it's also deeply empathetic and not very exploitative in that regard. The other thing I'll add about this movie, too, Mark Rylance is utterly phenomenal as a supporting role. His name is Sully. He's one of the first cannibals that Taylor Russell's character meets on her journey after she leaves home. And I mentioned earlier about Austin Butler's "It Has Everything to Do with Us" line. My favorite line of 2022, line and line delivery, has to be Mark Rylance when he first meets Taylor Russell's character in Bones and All. And he's about, I don't know, 15 yards away from her. And he goes, "I smelt you from the yard, missy." Mark Rylance is so terrifying in this movie because he feels like there's a person like him, that he feels like he was modeled after somebody who really exists. His character Sully, he feels this lived-in cannibal quality to him. He's terrifying every single time he's on screen. This might be one of my favorite Rylance performances too. This is directed by Luca Guadagnino, who obviously made Call Me By Your Name with Timothy Chalamet. And this is also the first movie in a long, long time, maybe ever, where Timothy Chalamet feels like an actual human being, too. He has more of a personality in this. He's more rugged. He's a little looser, too. I can't recommend this one enough. It's available to rent with a $20 price tag right now on video on demand. DVD's coming out on January 23rd, and it'll be cheaper on video on demand when it does. Highly, highly recommend this movie. It is so good, bones and all.
Didn't see it, but Steve, did you see the outfit with Mark Rylance?
That I didn't see, and I remember you were not only one of the 5 people who did see it, but you were one of the people that were really praising it as well.
I was, yeah. It is on the honorable mentions list.
Okay, I need to make time for it.
Dom, you got anything you want to add?
No, dude, I'm reading the description of this movie and it is something else.
Yeah.
So this is an experience. Romantic horror.
Yeah. That trailer, I remember, creeped me out because I remember it starts out and you think it's going to be like some coming of age film with like a bunch of like young girls, and then the girl eats another girl's finger at a sleepover, and I was just like, what the hell? Like,
and you know what, I think I saw the trailer once and I didn't really remember it because I went into this pretty blind. Don't get me wrong, there are moments in this movie that are downright fucking gross.
Ooh.
like scream. And you know what it is, it's one thing what you're watching. One thing I noticed, and it was probably because I saw it in a theater with like only 2 other people, the sounds got to me in such a way. The squelching and the chewing and the gnawing. Like, if you're somebody who's like one of those people that's, and I am to a degree, not to a really like soft degree, but if you're one of those people that gets, I don't know the term, but gets really unnerved by like chewing noises, this movie's going to be an impossible sit for you. I would have loved to review it on the show. I just, didn't know when we'd get it out here in Iowa, number 1. And number 2, I don't know if I'd put Dom through it because it's not scary, but it's very disturbing.
It's disturbing, yeah.
It's not scary, but it is damn disturbing.
Wow.
Number 2 on my list, and you guys might not believe me, but it fought for number 1. There were some days I really thought this was going to be number 1 on my list. I liked it that much, bones and all.
That's crazy.
Anyway. Taylor Russell too has arrived. Anyway, go continue, Joe.
My number two and 1, I want to say, despite what these movies are, to me they're very similar in some ways, and I will explain that as I talk about each one. But my number 2 is a movie that we reviewed at the beginning of the year. Is Turning Red, directed by Dominic, what you can watch now on Disney+. I fell in love with this movie when I first saw it. I think also just seeing Fox News lose their mind about it made me love it just a bit more, because the reasons why they were losing their mind about it are some of the reasons why I love the movie, and is how much it doesn't hide the fact of, hey, young girls go through this, and we should talk about this because this is normal. And I just think it's cool to see a kids movie actually just kind of acknowledge stuff like periods, tampons, all of a sudden finding boys attractive and why they're finding boys attractive, all this stuff. And just the whole allegory of like the whole red panda thing with the main character's like, you know, whole like family history. I thought that was such an interesting way to tie that all in. It is cutely animated. I mean, this film is just adorable to look at, especially that damn red panda. If I wasn't obsessed with Paddington, I would probably buy this panda, and this would be the panda I'd be in love with. I mean, the bear I'd be in love with. Yeah, man, it is such a just a great, refreshing movie too from Pixar. Where it's like, if you saw the other Pixar movie they released in theaters this year, which was Lightyear, you'd be like, oh, that was obviously not them, right? It was what? This is more of what I love seeing from Pixar. In terms of doing something original, something great. But the reason why it's also on my list is because the director here, this is like a very personal story for her, of like her growing up and just A, in Canada, but B, when she was becoming a teenager, and the things she was experiencing with her family and with her friend group. And you feel that throughout the entire film, from like the moments of like obviously replicating of her becoming an adult woman when she is having the moments of her turning into a red panda, to the moments of where she's arguing with her mother and standing up for herself, and the moments where her and her friend group are supporting each other through like this weird time that we all go through at puberty. It feels so personal, and you really do feel the love and attention in both the story and the direction here. It's why it stuck with me for so long, because every other animated movie we saw this year, Bad Guys, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, while all those could have easily also made my top 10, there was just something about the story here that it just felt so like, even though I'm not a woman, I just felt like, damn, I'm not a woman, but it's just like the girls I'm friends with, I've heard them talk about what it was like going through puberty and all that stuff. Just the other coming of age movies I've seen, like Edge of 17, 8th Grade, and everything. I feel like this movie just captures those moments too, but even just in a very like original and artistic way with this whole panda like thing. Not only that, it ends with a badass kaiju fight, and I was like, that I did not expect the movie to end with that. So yeah, my number 2 is Turning Red.
Yeah, dude. This didn't make my list, my top 5, but it's definitely high on my honorable mentions. And it was so cool to see. I forget. It's just a Pixar movie.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's like so strange to see Pixar doing something seemingly so like directly relatable, which is a kid in high school with their friends doing like school things, and then of course the magical element on top of it. But when they do it, it's like it's actually like breaking boundaries just a little bit, at least in Disney, in a Disney context, where they're talking about this stuff, and it's like, dude, that's pretty awesome. And then
the
like
fact that it's Pixar to do it too reminded me of like, this is why we loved Pixar for so long, because they always pushed the boundary when it came to animation. So it brought me back to that as well.
It's frenetic too in a lot of ways, which seemingly goes against Pixar's normal operation, where it's like very herky jerky, whereas earlier it was more like elegant and like magical, well, in that way, slower, but it didn't bother me too much, if at all, and it wound up being definitely one of the more grounded experiences, funny enough, despite being about a giant panda.
Yeah, it's a surprising feature to say the least in a lot of ways, and especially, I wouldn't say how nuanced it is, but just how it like kind of almost simultaneously in a weird way, in a contradictory way, like nuanced but blunt and like willing to talk about it. So no, it did impress me. It didn't make my honorable mentions, but I did really enjoy it. It's easily the superior Pixar movie too, to say the least. You got 5 minutes, Dom. I think you'll be able to give your number 2, and then we can take a break and go give our number 1s. What you got?
My number 2 is The Bad Guys, directed by Pierre Perifel. I actually out of all the movies on this list, I remembered them almost right away. It's like, okay, what's it going to be? Batman, Jackass, blah, blah, blah. But this one, I actually had to go back on our list and like go, yeah, what did we? Oh, dude, The Bad Guys. And it is a wonderfully executed movie. The animation is considering the past few years of some other weird stuff, Bad Guys is definitely top tier, and that's because it is directed by a someone who came from below as an animator, and was able to bring that very applied knowledge into the director's seat. At least that's what my assessment is, and because it's just paid off so well beautifully here. It's a good cast of awesome voice actors, actors turned voice actors, and it's a really fun, slick, and engaging movie. And my third slide, Joe, I don't know if you got into it yet, but it takes so heavily from Lupin the Third. That's one of my favorite, and probably my favorite anime. Period. Lupin the Third. You specifically the Castle of Cagliostro too it's such an awesome fun heist movie, and there are so many Lupin references in the Bad Guys. People are like putting Lupin music over like some sequences in the Bad Guys, and it's like, oh yeah, this actually makes perfect sense. Like very, very direct side-by-side comparisons, and it's like it's clear that they did their homework here, and they know exactly what they're taking from, and it has turned into its own thing. And when the sequel comes out, I can't wait for it. The fact that I'm gonna check once again, this is a Pixar joint.
No.
Sorry, not Pixar. This is a DreamWorks joint. That it surprised me so much. I just naturally said Pixar. No, it's a DreamWorks joint. Are you kidding me? This is like I haven't seen Puss in Boots, the latest one from 2022. I hear that's pretty damn good as well. But like I am so used to writing off DreamWorks so hard. That seeing something, and I haven't even kept up, so maybe they had some other bangers earlier in a few years prior, but dude, this is probably one of my favorite DreamWorks movies in a long time, and I hope they can not milk this property into oblivion, but I do hope they can do something with it lovingly, and with Pierre Perifel doing something really heartfelt with it, and doing something really cool.
I will say, there is a shift happening at DreamWorks that we're starting to see, especially with these.
Oh, I hope so.
That next year, if the Shrek reboot is actually a thing that's coming out next year, and if it's being done in the same way that Puss in Boots was done, with a unique animation style and just actually caring about the writing, not just doing references, I think DreamWorks might become like a competition now to Pixar at this point.
From the ashes, as Pixar is on the decline. Not that they're in the garbage, but
no.
they not as high as,
We now go into Pixar movie being like, oh, this actually might not be that good.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm excited. I would like to see, honestly, a Bad Guys sequel. And I know be careful what you wish for. You might get it.
Right.
But I would really want a Bad Guys sequel.
This is deserving.
Especially, too, if they brought back everybody for the voice cast. Because what an excellent band of characters, and brought to life by exceptional voice acting. These characters felt distinctive. They felt crafty. It has this Reservoir Dogs film, California noir style to it, of like color palette wise.
I'm the first person
really
to lambast picking random actors, A-list actors to be voice actors, but everyone here did fantastic.
Nice.
I couldn't agree more. We are going to take one more Zoom sponsored intermission, and then we are coming back with our number one favorite films of 2022. I'm excited to see your guys's, and then we'll briefly run through our honorable mentions. So we still got a little bit more time. Don't go anywhere. Live and in living color on the first Wednesday of 2023. This is Sleepless with Back and better than ever. Sleepless with Steve. We're in it for the long haul today. OT Sleepless with Steve right now because we still have a little bit more to go with our top 5 favorite films of 2022. It's always one of 2 of our biggest shows of the year alongside our worst films of the year. But before we get to our number ones, we have some honorable mentions. I don't want to take too long on this, but I just want to give a brief sort of distillation of my picks number 6 through 10. Again, my full list with my full blurbs on each of these movies and where you can watch them is available at stevepulaski.com. Without further ado, though, I'll crack into my not really honorable mentions, just kind of rounding out my top 10 list over here because I did make the top 10 list. So here we go. Number 6 on the list is Tar. This is one of the most divisive movies, I think, of the year, next to Bones and All. Cate Blanchett is outstanding. This is going to be a polarizing sit for many audience members, too, especially when it gets a lot of Oscar nominations, as I foresee, and people are going to watch it, and I think a lot of people are going to be pissed off. Dom and I had an excellent discussion about it weeks ago. I think that this movie about a very toxic and unsavory and manipulative conductor is probably more fleshed out than a lot of biopics in any given year. Tar makes number 6 on my list. Glass Onion and Knives Out Mystery is number 7. How does Rian Johnson respond after creating one of the most entertaining movies of the year with Knives Out? He goes bigger, craftier, and even more timely with Glass Onion. This is a really flashy, sexy, full-bodied sequel. Takes a little bit to get going, but that is not a negative, though. It gets you really in tune with these characters. I thought the ensemble was better developed this time around. And making a sequel to a great movie is never easy. Glass Onion did it, and I would stand by my opinion of welcoming one of these movies every 2 to 3 years if Rian Johnson keeps it up, and it sounds like he will. Number 8 on my list, Apollo 10.5, A Space Age Childhood. Another beautiful Richard Linklater joint, to say the very least. He is one of the few directors that I think can turn this grandiose plot of a boy's fantastical daydreaming odyssey to the moon, and not only make it just warm and inviting and not corny, but also make it a subplot to the actual movie, which is the plot of this movie is really the era itself, the specificities of the space age time in American history, and the ensuing warmth of it all. Apollo 10.5, gorgeous rotoscope animation too. The third of its kind from Richard Linklater. Number 9, documentary on Netflix. It is Stutz. It is Jonah Hill's documentary. Very underpromoted. I think a lot of people still have yet to watch this thing. This is the documentary on Dr. Phil Stutz, who's been Jonah Hill's therapist for many, many years. This is really a warm, captivating, and honestly well-intentioned look at therapy. Initially, it's conceived as a therapy session between Dr. Stutz and Jonah Hill. And I know on the surface that sounds like the most narcissistic thing in the world, but the way Jonah Hill, he doesn't get as vulnerable as you might like, but he does really reveal himself in a lot of ways, but he also doesn't do so as much as to distract from Dr. Stutz's teachings. I found myself at a lot of times when he was talking about these tools that we can use to help better our mental health and our image of ourselves. I found myself a lot during this movie closing my eyes and trying to implement them myself. I think this is a very personal movie, not only for Jonah Hill, but I also think it's a tough movie to talk about based on how you're going to receive it and how you're going to be impacted by it, if you are at all. Stutz makes number 9 on my list. It's on Netflix right now. And number 10, the movie that I thought should represent my list for a great banner year of horror movies, Barbarian. Fantastic movie. I've had a lot of fun talking to this movie with friends, and I still think it has one of the wackiest, maybe the wackiest and most jarring tonal shift of the year. Halfway through, or not, like a third of the way through this movie. This movie is divided in between 3 distinctive acts over 3 distinctive locations and periods of time, and the wraparound of this is damn impressive. It might not be as topical as Jordan Peele's Get Out and as timely and as riddled with social commentary, but similarly, though, Zach Kreger, one of the guys behind The Whitest Kids You Know, you feel like he's been working in the horror genre for many, many years. That's how good this movie is, how well it's written. And I will say that it is poised to do for Airbnbs what Final Destination 2 did for log trucks. Barbarian is number 10 on my list. And a great year for horror movies, top to bottom. Joe, your honorable mentions.
All right, yeah. I'll go 10 through 6 here. For me, number 10, Barbarian. everything Steve just said. I mean, just like, yeah, it's so damn true. This movie was such a thrill to see in theaters. What a great year for horror films in general. I absolutely loved it. This was an outstanding year if you're a horror fan, and Barbarian was like probably the biggest surprise because it came out in August, which, you know, if you know what August is as a moviegoer, you know that's kind of like the dump month where a lot
The
of
end of August, too.
the end of August too. But we actually got 2 fun movies that month that I think kind of helped keep at least theaters going a little bit. One was Bullet Train, which came out at the beginning, and then Barbarian, which came out at the end. Had a blast with Barbarian, absolutely loved it. Check it out if you haven't. Number 9, Everything Everywhere All at Once. I already know that like some film Twitter dude that will eventually come across this YouTube video will just stab me for putting it at number 9 and not putting it at number 1. But that being said, yeah, Everything Everywhere All at Once is an incredible movie. It's really awesome. Everything you've heard on Twitter from everybody talking about this movie, it's true. It's there. Do I think it's the best movie ever made? No. Do I think it's the best movie of the year? Obviously not. It's number 9. But it's one of the best things I've seen all year. It's really original. Michelle Yeoh, I hope she wins that Oscar because she killed it in this movie. It was great to see just everybody in this movie give it their all with how crazy and absurd it gets, almost to a fault. But I had a ton of fun with it. If you haven't seen Everything Everywhere All at Once, definitely check it out. Number 8, which is the pick I was actually... I wish I was here to review this movie with you guys, but it's the Weird Al Yankovic story. Because I saw your guys' review, and I was like just shocked about how much I ended up loving this movie, and how like you guys were kind of like, it's all right. Like, I thought this movie just made fun of biopics perfectly. And I know it gets absolutely bonkers the longer it goes on, but I felt like it just kind of fits with who they're doing a biopic for. And I was just riding with it, and I had a blast. I thought Daniel Radcliffe killed it comedically as Weird Al. I had so much fun watching this movie. If you haven't seen it, you can watch it for free on Roku, and I think it's definitely worth the watch. Number 7, Steve, Don't Kill Me. It's Cha Cha Real Smooth. I love the movie. Can't wait for Cooper Raiff's next movie. Still haven't seen Shithouse. I definitely want to because Cha Cha Real Smooth was one of the best things I saw this year. I want to see more from him. He is I feel like he is such a relatable guy throughout this movie. And if there's anything I've heard from Shithouse from you, he even sounds more relatable in that movie as well. He's an up-and-coming young director that I think just like we need to keep an eye out for because I think he's going to make waves, man. And I can't wait to see what he does next. And at number 6 is Nope, directed by Jordan Peele. Absolutely had a great time with this movie. It was great to see Jordan Peele 3 for 3 now. This guy had his first blockbuster, and it still feels as good as his other 2 movies are. Honorable mentions that weren't on this list, I'll only say a couple. They were just basically the ones that kind of got knocked off this list. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish was on there until Knives Out came. Apollo 10.5 was on there, and Pearl. I mentioned a few others, Batman, Wakanda Forever, but those 3 I wanted to give a spotlight to. Those 3 were on my top 10 list, and I thought we're going to stay on there until I saw some of the other movies that came out later this year, such as The Menu and Glass Onion.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And I will not be mad at you, Joe. The fact that Cha Cha Real Smooth made your list at all makes me very happy because it made far too few critics lists. Dom, your honorable mentions rounding out your top 10.
I actually did this a little differently. I've never done 6 through 10, but I'm going to do it right now, right off the cuff, baby. So my honorable, it's just one thing, Joe. Honorable mentions, it's as you see on the montage here of movies. Number 6 is going to be Tar. Number 7 is going to be Nope. Number 8 is going to be Not Okay. Number 9 is probably going to be Apollo 10.5, and number 10 is We're All Going to the World's Fair. If I actually had to remove a movie out of this honorable mentions, it'd probably be Avatar, The Way of Water, because I don't know how, like I said, I don't know if it's going to hold up for me over time.
I wanted to mention that. I was just like, dude, I mean, like, coming off of our review, like, I'm actually surprised this was even on here.
That's like...
Yeah, you felt like the most negative of us all.
I was, and honestly, I'm feeling negative about it again. So let's just
He's
move
looking
on.
at it, he's like, get out of here. I only got
Yeah, honestly, like
I only got room for one movie that takes place underwater.
Not
with
not
people.
okay is an interesting addition though. Not okay was an interesting addition
yeah.
though for you.
Well, obviously Mega 64. No, I'm kidding. But like the real reason is that it makes me incredibly uncomfortable because it gets to the heart of this like that whole topic of white grievance politics and shit,
Yeah.
which is so messy. It's such a messy thing to even approach, let alone talk about in depth. And this movie actually manages to attack it head on. And the resolution, where it resolves, is the kicker for me, which is like, yeah, shut the hell up and just let the people that are actually like, going through shit, actually talk for themselves for once.
Yeah.
That's basically the heart of it.
I also shout out to you for putting Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. I forgot. I thought this came out
Yeah.
last year. Like I absolutely like that's probably another honorable mention for me because I had
That did come out. That did come out in 20. It technically did come out last year. Technically,
Would it hold up
but-
on a rewatch? Would it hold up on a rewatch? Maybe. But the fact that this poster, the fact that this poster turned into a good movie, is an achievement in and of itself.
Yeah.
Which I'm saying more and more often, where it's like, oh man, can you believe the Spider-Man movie actually turned out good? Oh man, can you believe the Jesus Christ, the Jackass reunion turned out good? It's like, yeah, I think we're over the cliff. Not really, but there's some light here, man.
We should move forward with our number one picks, favorite films of 2022. Now, I did mention when I talked about Bones and All, I did say that this Bones and All did wrestle with my number one pick. So I did do some thinking. What was the ultimate tiebreaker? The fact that it's been staring at you on screen this whole time. Cha-Cha Real Smooth, Cooper Rife has got next. These guys have had to put up with me for a long time with this movie because I saw it in January. The shout out to Sundance Film Festival going virtual, and it's going virtual again in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, shout out to them. We had to deal with this for the whole year in January. This point in time,
half the year because it didn't come out in Apple TV until June. Of me saying it's a great movie, you guys can't watch it yet though. Oh wait, this year I'm gonna tell you right now. The first things first, the movie Shortcomings this year. I'm seeing it at Sundance in a couple of weeks. Shortcomings, I got a good feeling is going to be the next one I'm going to bug you guys about until you can see it. Anyway, Cha-Cha Real Smooth. I'm just going to say this. My review of this movie is like 14 paragraphs long. I wrote another lengthy essay on Cooper Rife and his first two movies on my website, stevepulaski.com. And I reviewed Shithouse, and that was another long review. The internet is already clogged with my thoughts about Cooper Rife and this movie, Cha-Cha Real Smooth. So just to keep it pithy here, Cooper Rife hits another home run with this really nice, winsome dramedy. Dakota Johnson should get awards consideration for this. She is absolutely terrific. Every character in this movie is at least adequately developed enough to justify their existence and all the dialogue that they get in this script too. There's this tender, geeky authenticity to Cooper Rife that I think might off-put some, but totally wins me over. And he was also just recently featured on Hollywood's 30 Under 30 by Forbes as well. And he has got a production company now called Small Ideas under his belt. It's a joint venture, and he's coming out with a total 180 in the movie The Thrashers. I believe that'll probably come out in 2024. Cha-Cha Real Smooth is now streaming, though, on Apple TV+. I can't recommend it enough. I've recommended it, I think, if my count remains right, I've recommended it to, of the 9 people I recommended it to, 6 of which loved it, 1 of which liked it, 2 of which didn't like it. So that's a pretty good batting average right there for Cha-Cha Real Smooth. Better than the menu, indeed. Cha-Cha Real Smooth. Even my buddy, who we got in a war of words with, a lip sparring match over Bones and All, who said it was one of the worst movies he saw this year. When I told him Cha-Cha was going to be number 1, he's like, well, at least you picked a really great movie. So Cha-Cha Real Smooth's my number 1. It's on Apple TV+. Please see the thing. And I hope it kind of surprises with the best original screenplay nomination come the Oscars. Joe, what is your number 1?
My number 1, as I said, number 2 and number 1 share a similar thing to me. And you're probably going to be like, what the hell do you mean by that when I reveal it? My number one is the first 4-star review I gave this year or last year on Sleepless with Steve. It was the only one I gave because unfortunately I wasn't here to review Top Gun Maverick. But my number one is The Northman. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, hold on a minute. What the hell does this have to do with Turning Red? Let me explain. Turning Red, as I said, was a director sharing a very passion-filled, like, personal story to her. I'm not saying Robert Eggers was a Viking in a past life, but he might as well have been. Because this movie is all about Viking lore. And the reason why these two movies, Turning Red and The Northman, were neck and neck for me at points, but The Northman just won it by a mile, is because it was a vision both directors had, and I felt like the studio didn't interfere too much with it, and that their vision was just seen the whole way through. Dude, this is Robert Eggers' fever dream of a Viking movie. This guy has been trying to make a Viking movie since his career started. He's been trying to do it for the longest time. He had dreams of doing it after The Witch, but unfortunately couldn't find a studio yet, so he went to go make The Lighthouse. Finally, he got a studio, he got his cast, and my God, man, what a thrill of a movie. This movie is brutal. This movie is just dirty, violent, everything that the History Channel show Vikings doesn't want to show you, this movie does. And it is all about its Viking Norse mythology as well. The visuals in this movie are so badass. I'm not even a Viking fan. Like when For Honor came out, that video game where it's knights, Vikings, and samurai fighting each other, I didn't play the Vikings because I thought they were stupid. Dude, after this and God of War, I might be a Viking #1 fan. Like, even with the team going possibly to the Super Bowl, who knows? I'm lying, of course. Samurais are way cooler. But dude, this movie, I mean, just the production of it, the fact they actually replicated like the sets, like everything you saw like in this movie, no green screen was used. They built these sets. They shot on location. They used as many extras as they could. Throughout this movie. It is everything I love to see with these kind of movies that like take place in a period of time, like with Gladiator, The Green Knight. It's everything I love to see with this. The dialogue is just so good, man. It's like you're watching a theatrical play at times. Nicole Kidman has one of the best plot twist scenes I've ever seen in my life, to where I literally sat there after she introduced this movie to me at AMC Theaters, and I said, "You bitch." I was just like, I can't believe this. The cast here in general, Anya Taylor-Joy, again, like, you know, she is in 2 of my favorite films this year. She's incredible in this. Ethan Hawke, the short time he is in this movie, he's so damn good in this. As I said already, Nicole Kidman is very good. But of course, I gotta give it to the 2 leads here. Klaus Bang, who plays Flonir, the main character's uncle. Very reserved performance, but commanding when he's on screen. But Alexander Skarsgård, talk about being so damn dedicated to this role, dude. The dude got ripped, shredded, everything, but just was owning this movie, dude. This movie, he is a leading man. All the Skarsgårds are, man. This year, the Skarsgårds killed it as a family. That Thanksgiving dinner,
1000%.
the Thanksgiving dinner they must have been one hell of a time, dude. Between their performances and everything they gave and the producing credits they did this year. But of course, at the end of the day, man, Robert Eggers, dude. Talk about, I mean, like, 3 directors I like saw in 2017 that I said to myself, dude, I cannot wait to see what they do next. One of them was Jordan Peele. The next was, oh my God, Ari Aster, and then Robert Eggers being another. And seeing their careers just get better and better with each movie they do has been a joy to see. I've recommended The Northman to people, and some of them have not liked it. Right now, currently, on Google reviews, it is a 2.6 out of 5. I don't know what's with me. Maybe I have a bad taste in movies. I don't know. But for me, dude, this movie was raw. It was badass. It is everything I love seeing in movies. It sucks it bombed at the box office. I wasn't surprised, though, like halfway like through like reading the stories and everything about the how bad it did at the box office. But damn it, dude, Eggers, I hope this doesn't push you away from doing what you did here in this film, because this was an awesome experience that I hope to see again from you, and I hope to see from directors that you inspire.
Very, very well said. Yeah, I really liked Robert Eggers as the Northman. I liked it. That was actually one of my official honorable mentions on my list. Probably would have clocked in at number 11 or 12 if my list was a top 20 list. I really enjoyed Northman. Dom, what you got for number one to send us home?
My number one is none other
I
than
just saw what you did.
Andor. It is Andor created by Tony Gilroy. I'm just kidding, Joe.
For those of you who don't know, I was looking at everybody's number ones just to make sure I had it queued up. He will review it, but it wasn't Andor. He just put it in there just now, and I see his little
I
icon
literally
in the corner.
I'm using Google Slides, and I literally just made that in the past like 5 minutes. Okay, no, for real, Joe. Next slide. It is Top Gun Maverick.
Okay.
I told you, Steve. Are you shocked or no?
A little bit, yeah. I was thinking though when you were giving your 6 through 10 though, I was like, he didn't mention Top Gun Maverick. Is that? I was thinking about that a little bit when Joe was giving his. Yeah, so
now you're probably thinking like, why would Dominic put as number one this piece of hardcore American propaganda glorifying the military might of the U.S. Navy, the second largest air force in the world, the largest air force in the world being the U.S. Air Force. But regardless, the reason is because Top Gun does something that no other movie in the past several years is able to do in this environment, which is have a white male lead actor. Thank you so much, Tom Cruise, for showing us that if you just let white men lead the way in movies and stories, you can actually make it big in Hollywood. So Tom Cruise, no, I'm just kidding, dude, this was an experience for me, not like no other, because that's Elvis. And I will defend that number 5, no higher, but number 5. This for me really hit me. Honestly, there was probably some last minute intervention here from somewhere in the universe, because New Year's Eve, just a few days ago, New Year's Eve, my dad, he has a basement projector. That goes against the wall, so he gets kind of a good movie experience with surround sound. He says, "Hey, want to watch Top Gun Maverick?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." Bro, we sat through the whole thing. I did not think we were going to watch. People were over, and people just kept coming down and staying there. My cousin's longtime girlfriend, like his dad, who's like 80, and it's like, bro, and we're all there watching Top Gun Maverick, and it is the most blockbuster movie, the good kind of blockbuster movie that no other movie has been able to capture as much. Number 4, Batman. I did watch, actually, honestly, between this and Batman, I didn't watch many movies with other people. It's mostly just me in a theater by myself, which is a great practice to do.
Welcome to my world.
A great audience for God's Not Dead. What are you talking about?
Nothing like being surrounded by people that make you wish you were alone.
Oh, 100%. But honestly, this movie captured that feeling of watching movies with people again, even though I've done it a bunch of times watching movies with people, don't get me wrong, but it got to it in such a level, and this movie could not have been better built for that moment for me, because it is nostalgic, but not overly. Like the first 2 minutes is, of course, Danger Zone, and thankfully they don't do it again after that, but they still maintain that synth, that inspiring roaring synth, right? You've got Tom Cruise, a classic, action hero, baby face actor who's got that spunkiness to him. It's a heist movie as the template. You've got the young bragging dudes, Air Force pilots, Top Gun pilots, of course, and they're all cocky, but they're all damaged in some way underneath the surface. It's a classic story, a cliched story, if it wasn't just accomplished so damn well. And this is Top Gun Maverick is going to be something that studios are going to be looking at and be like, why the fuck can we not recreate this? How many rebooted series and movies do we have to resurrect and sacrifice at the altar to get this again? And they just can't get it. Honestly, I can't even accentuate. I can't even accentuate why this works and other reboots don't. Other, not reboots, but like why does Scream, the not the Scream 6 movie, which
Scream 5,
I'm very tepid about. Yes, why does Scream 5 work the way it does? And I didn't even love that movie too terribly much, but it's like, why does, or that works, but why not to the level of Top Gun Maverick? And
or how Ghostbusters even.
Yeah, exactly. A Ghostbuster. Yeah, why not? Yeah, actually, no, that's a perfect comparison.
Yeah.
Why
Afterlife's a great example.
Yes, thank you. That's great. Even in the 80s too. Why didn't Ghostbusters Afterlife? I don't even know. Why didn't that do as well as Top Gun Maverick? And there are a lot of other factors outside of its story and how it handled things. There's a lot of, not politics, but like movie politics and movie timing as well, and this and that. But why not? I don't know. I don't know if you guys can accentuate it either. Other than they just made a good movie. They just did the right thing and focused on making a good story. And staying true to not the Top Gun lore, but staying true to like that feeling of, you're here to see jets go off the rails, do some not too crazy shit, not like wild shit, but you want that feeling of going Mach 10.2 and that hitting you in the chest.
Yeah.
And this hit me right between the eyes, bro. I really did not want this to be my number one, but after looking at everything else on this list, it can beat Top Gun Maverick in their own individual ways, but as a complete blockbuster movie package, Top Gun Maverick just does it for me, and it's number one. I can't believe it. It's my number one.
It makes so much sense though, like when you're talking
I'll
about
leave it there, man.
like it makes so much sense when you're talking about it. Because I gave this, I wasn't here to review it. I was unfortunately gone that weekend, or that week. But it was a 4-star movie for me. It's a 4-star movie in terms of blockbusters for me. That's why some of the films were higher, even though if you've been keeping up, I gave them 3.5 out of 4 stars. But like this, to me though, I mean, like what you brought up in terms of like how they have not been able to replicate this like other studios, it's because I feel that other studios don't really make a movie first. They're getting the elements of what people like about these movies, and then they make the movie, and they're finding ways to put the elements that people like into those movies. This happens with movies I enjoy, Star Wars, The Force Awakens, where it does take elements of what I liked about the previous Star Wars films of the original trilogy, and it puts it in this new one. And I think it's done well. But it's also, there's films like Ghostbusters Afterlife or the recent Jurassic Park movies, where they're just taking elements of what people like from those previous films, and they're handling those elements before they even write anything on the paper. It's before they even write a line of dialogue on the paper. They're writing like, okay, if we make a Ghostbusters movie, we have to have Slimer in it, and we have to have the original Ghostbusters show up, and we have to have the car. And it's like they don't think like, how can we make these characters? One thing I think we didn't mention at all when talking about Top Gun is the use of its legacy characters in this movie. When they bring in, oh my god.
Sure. Val Kilmer.
And the emotion that is there, how they handle that character is so damn good. And it's better than anything most of these blockbusters that we've seen that resurrect a franchise have done recently. I got emotional when I watched Star Wars because it's Star Wars. I grew up watching it. But like, I got emotional watching that scene because of the scene and what they're talking about and what's happening. Yes, it does relate to what is happening also in Val Kilmer's real life, but they still use that character's legacy to great effect.
The fact that they didn't need to do any CGI, anything, any deep fake, whatever, that Star Wars is doing all over the place. And it's like, no, we're even going to play into his current situation, which is just, he's a legacy character that we just need to give the salute on. And dude, it must be weird being Val Kilmer. He's still alive, right? Because like watching your own funeral, like, goddamn, I hope he doesn't watch
My
this.
dad actually turned to me and went, wait, did he die when they were filming?
Yeah.
Like, no, he's alive still. Don't worry.
No, it was a cinematic eulogy for him, to say the least. Yeah. Like, that's what made it all the more potent, too. It was like, movie was great. Yeah. It's like, this is a great movie. And then there's this element too.
And it's like they get rid of that fanfare right out the gate. You mentioned how they play Danger Zone right at the start. That's it. That's the only fanfare you get. You sit in your chair, you hear the song. All right, we're here to tell a story. We're here to do a movie. Let's go. Like, that's
The
it.
fan service is the good movie.
There you go. That put that on a DVD cover right there. Put that on the DVD box. The fan service is a good movie.
I
Great
take it
movie.
back. The beach scene is fantastic.
Yeah. The
beach
whole
scene is
like, okay,
great.
we have to have a volleyball scene.
But it serves a
it's
purpose.
earned.
It actually
It's
serves
earned,
a
though.
purpose.
And it serves a purpose. It's earned and it serves a purpose.
Best
Yeah,
scene
I
in the
think
film.
we all loved Top Gun Maverick. That's for damn sure. I'm glad it made all of our lists. And again, like, when was also the last time you could think of a movie that like everybody loved?
Yeah.
Everybody loved. You know, even there, I mean, I know people that didn't love it as much as me or you guys, but they liked it. Like, that was the other refreshing thing about it, was that it was just a movie that everybody really, really liked. You didn't need to belong to the club of Marvel or DC. It was just a classically good, well-made, extremely well shot American movie.
Yeah.
And that's what I think was really ultimately nice about it too. And
I even know some online lefties that are like, "Oh, dude, I hate American militarism and how it preys on the poor to recruit their war machine." God damn, Top Gun Maverick's pretty damn good though. And it's
it's pretty damn good though, isn't it?
Gotta admit, it's good.
It gave me my Top
What
Gun
a
era.
time.
That whole that summer after Memorial Day weekend, I was wearing shades. I wanted to learn how to ride a motorcycle. I was like,
It felt I was like doing this mentally coming out of that theater,
no, I was
like
too.
without realizing it. It's good.
Talk about a great show to kick off 2023. This is always one of my favorite shows of the year, and you guys did not disappoint. I think the only thing more fun than this show is the next one, because next week we're doing the same thing, except we each got 5 worst films of 2022. It might be the only show better than this one. I've already got my slideshow made and my worst list live on my website, but you don't want to miss next week, because next week is going to be a ton of fun, counting down some of the worst movies of 2022. And unlike last year, where I only had like 7 or 8 actual movies I put on my worst list, I had a lot more this year and a lot more movies I downright friggin' hated. So that'll be fun to look forward to next week. Great show, gents. You outdone yourself, and great slideshows too. It was fun watching them over here as well.
Yeah.
This
Dom,
has been
to give you a conclusion on your poll, actually. Out of pocket for putting Elvis in the top 5. You are currently at 50-50, and we're about to end the show.
Wow.
I'm
Okay.
a Maverick, baby. I'm a Maverick.
Wow. Look at that. Is he out of pocket? I still can't believe I did that. Thanks for reminding me about that.
I'm like John
way to-
McCain. Get out of here.
Great way to end the show, gents. Sleepless with Steve. We come to you live and in living color every Wednesday evening, 6:30 Central Time. Back next week for our 5 worst films of 2022. Until then, for Dominic Guanzon, Joe Viso, and yours truly, this has been Sleepless with Steve.